Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Matthew Matturro, CISO at TriNetX. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. Hackers are getting smarter. Is your security keeping up? CyberLink sells industry-leading AI-powered cybersecurity solutions that detect threats in real time, so you know about an attack before the damage is done, not after. Learn more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyber, Lynx.com. And now back to our show. Matt, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about TriNetX and your role there as CISO?
Sure. So, Matt, as you said, I'm Matt Matturro. I lead our information security program. I've been with TriNetX. TriNetX is the global truth engine for better human health. And I've been with the organization for over 11 years now. I've held a variety of roles, everything from the first IT and security hire to whatever else is needed.
I love it. So, global truth source. That's an interesting
global truth engine. Yep.
Engine. There you go. That's an interesting phrase. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So TriNetX has access through partnerships with a variety of data providers around the globe to be able to take all of these distributed data nodes and pull them together for clinical trials or research or additional, analytics, those kinds of things. And the idea is that this is real data that's connected for any purpose that you're looking for to, further human health.
Got it. Now, TriNetX, you were in AI and using AI before AI was cool, right? So, what's your take on it? You guys have been in this space for a long time. You clearly, it's a big part of what you do. What can you tell us about that?
It is. So yeah, before generative AI became super popular through the likes of the big companies that are doing this, we've been in things like natural language processing, which falls into AI, doing machine learning, all the fun stuff there, and dealing with that raw data science that has been around for so long, tens of years now. Is really cool to see the transformation from your more traditional data science, your machine learning, your natural language processing, into now generative AI. And it's really democratized the ability to get to data and to unlock working with that data. But at the same time, and where we combine is both the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence together.
I love that. And one of the things I think is really fun and interesting when it comes to AI is how it plays into cybersecurity. And I think we're at this really fun kind of part of history, this time in history where I think it's perhaps the most exciting time there's ever been. I mean, you've got so much innovation when it comes to AI. And of course, when it comes to cybersecurity, it is a bit of a arms race, game of cat and mouse between the good guys and the bad guys. And I think where it gets really interesting, at least from my perspective, and I'm going to be curious to see what your take on this is. I think we see, kind of the future of where AI and cybersecurity is going in products like Darktrace, for instance, where, they're using the right kinds of AI in the right ways to kind of to secure the enterprise and not just create, more notifications and more noise and more data. That's all well and good, but I think that becomes a little much, right? There's not a lot of value in just having more information and just having more alerts because of the alert fatigue. So being able to have AI that actually, filters out through the noise and takes action, in the right way, and then brings a human in when it's time and like, hey, we saw this bad thing going on. I stopped it. We've taken care of it, but we wanted to call for an adult and make sure that things got handled properly. I think that's really exciting. And I think, there's never been a cooler time, I think, to be in tech because of stuff like that. But I'm curious, not everybody shares my view on this, and I'm curious where you stand.
Yeah, it's both a exciting time and a terrifying time all at the same point. So From an exciting perspective, as a technologist at heart, I really love getting in. I have a deputy CISO and chief of staff agent that I run, and I love working with it. I actually just today did a presentation to my entire organization talking about it, talking about how we're doing what's called like headless security operations, things of that nature, and really bringing together the technology to kind of remove some of the administrative items that would be normally daunting tasks or time consuming, time switching tasks that we don't really need to deal with anymore. And so that's really exciting. At the same time, you see the likes of Hugging Face and OpenAI, you see Meta, all in the news about things, Anthropic as well, in the news about things getting out. That's a real scary thing. You know, we are a SaaS company at heart, and so we have stuff that's public facing, that's on the internet, and it's just it amps up the time to attack, the frequency, and so it's definitely more difficult to defend. But at the same time, the big focus should be, and for all those listening that have ever heard me speak, it's all about getting fundamentals right, getting that basic hygiene right. When you talk about MCP servers, is your API security right? Give that an abstracted view and take a look at how you can secure that better. When you work with agents, is your identity security in place? All of those kinds of things. And ultimately being able to know what's going on. It's frankly, it's the non-sexy side of security, but at the same time, it's the most impactful.
Well, and I think that you raise a really good point. You know, I think AI tends to encourage people to do the advanced stuff and forget or overlook the basics. So it's just like anything, professional sports, the greatest athletes are the greatest at the fundamentals. And if you're going to be successful in anything, you have to be great at the fundamentals, whether that's cybersecurity or anything in life, as far as I can see. I don't know anybody who can just work on the trick shot and not be able to do the rest of the game and be successful, right? And so I think that's a really, really good point. And it's interesting because I think that AI is taking us to a place where the fundamentals, like look at patch management, right? Historically, you were doing great if you were able to kind of take care of patching as it came out, and fantastic, because historically the bad guys were slower to adopt, and you weren't under this constant threat of zero-day exploits. Maybe if you were a high value target, you're a government, you're Chase, fine. In these particular cases, you're under more scrutiny, more attack. But for the average enterprise and business, that really wasn't a threat. But I think interestingly, now it is because of AI. They discover these zero-day threats in unbelievable time. They then exploit it at machine speed. And then the question is, well, if patching is no longer it, what is it? How do we protect ourselves from this? And I think that's where AI comes in. And with those right AI, tools, you now have that, AI watching and saying, hey, look, this isn't right. I don't know how or why, but I know that this shouldn't be happening. So
Yeah.
I'm going to stop it because this is abnormal. And I'm really good at seeing a bunch of stuff and being like, that's not normal, right? Whereas we are not. Humans are not good at it, but AI is super good at it. And so I think these are the places where I think it balances that, the tables. But I also think it tends to, I think there's a balance when it comes to the fundamentals. Like, yeah, we got a patch management, but yeah, we got a patch. But if patching is no longer even, you know, I'm not going to say it's not relevant. Obviously, it's relevant, but if it is no longer part of the frontline defense, right, then what fills that gap? And I think that people, will tend to say, oh no, we don't have to worry about patching because we've got AI, watch. Okay. But if your ship is full of holes, you're still
Mhm.
taking on tons of water. Should we not just patch the holes, right? But so I think that speaks to your point of getting the fundamentals right. But then in our modern crazy AI world that we live in now, I think that every organization needs to be using AI to secure their enterprise and see exactly what's going on and stop those zero-day exploits. But that's me, and I'm going to give you a chance to reply.
No, Matt, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And where I see this is it's a lesson to all CISOs, all security teams, all IT teams to work better with the business and understand risk management. Because ultimately, it's a risk management exercise. The best teams are going to move to a more AI native capacity where they've got series of agents handling, the foundational fundamental things that humans don't need to do anymore or need to just observe. There's an observability layer that may have a mix of humans and AI in it. And then at a higher order that's leading and strategizing humans with AI input to help think at a more broad perspective, it's going to be super critical. One thing I'm actually working with moving my team from a standard type format. We operate in three pillars: governance, risk and compliance, security operations, and product security. And so I'm taking those same three pillars, but what I'm doing is I'm bringing my team up. I'm challenging them to frankly automate themselves out of what they're doing on a day to day to do higher order items. Now, at the same time, I also am trying to push them to work on appropriate agents where they need to be. So that could be something like, and this is just a concept we're working on. We don't have anything in this place yet, but AI, a risk manager AI agent, someone that could actually sit in our org chart and interact through our various headless security type areas, maybe listen in our direct message platform and pull threads together, get transcripts from a meeting, maybe even sit in the meeting, with some of the offerings that there are now. And so ultimately, I think organizations need to have some slight changes to how they operate, how they think about things, because that's ultimately going to be what changes the risk profile of everything. But ultimately, come back to that risk profile, think about where risk is. Bring for GRC teams, bring in GRC engineering. So, more automation to really understand where you're at. Taking your patch management example, it's super critical to get patch management right because you're removing those risks as soon as it's patched. And you don't have to do further treatment. You don't have to do microsegmentation or add a WAF in things or tune the WAF. It's gone at that point. If you get that fundamental right, those items are gone. Now, there's other things you're going to have to worry about, and there's always going to be more holes in the ship. To your analogy, get the big things done, get the easy things done right before that next bulkhead is breached.
I absolutely love that. Now, let me ask you. So, as you say, you've got all of your people kind of working themselves out of their current day-to-day jobs,
Mhm.
right? So they can focus on bigger and better. Now, those agents that they're building or they're using, how much of this do you guys build internally using AI and be like, okay, great, we built this versus going outside and looking for existing solutions?
Sure, we've got some wonderful technology partners, some large platforms that we're able to leverage. Some have MCP integrations from a headless security perspective. Some have APIs. In some cases, we're building MCPs to connect things to kind of further automate. And in some cases, we don't really have much of anything, and we kind of have to go from jump all the way up to maybe satisfy certain like CIS type controls and things that would be really foundational and fundamental, but we may not have the tooling for in-house at the moment. So we are building some technology, we're partnering on some technology, and we're further integrating on everything.
That's great. And I think we all know the answer to this, but I mean, I think it's so incredible how empowering it is to build those. Whereas if you rewind, 5, 6 years ago, building any of this in-house was, yeah, unimaginable unless you were potentially a software company. If you were a developer, fine, that's what you do for clients, that's what you do. So it's one thing to build that. But um, now everybody's got the power to develop
Mhm.
rather rapidly. So how has
But
that
with great
affected
power
you?
comes great responsibility.
There we go. That's where we're headed. So how do you then secure that? What is your focus then? Like you've got your folks taking great, care to develop these things and hopefully with security in mind. But then how do you secure your AI created agents and software?
Sure. So it's a bit of aim small, miss small. It's a bit of get the fundamentals right if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. And for example, I mentioned deputy CISO and chief of staff type agent that I run. It actually runs locally through our offering, through a co-work type of offering where it can interact with files. It knows more or less what I know, kind of a little bit more of like a virtual twin aspect to it. It's not fully autonomous. It's not just out there thinking and doing and not bound by anything. And so from a fundamentals perspective, it's using my identity for a lot of things. So it knows what I know, and that's great. The detriment to that is if I were to unleash it to the organization as a whole or even my team, there's things I know that I have, access to information as an executive that my team might not. And so getting those information classifications right in various different respects are going to be what's critical. Part of the presentation I actually did today with my organization was around garbage in, garbage out, right? It's not just if the data is garbage, but also like, should you be able to touch this? Should you be able to take this data and put it into this system? Those kinds of things. And granted, we're dealing with healthcare data. So we're dealing with healthcare data around the globe. We operate on, I think, 5 continents. We've got people on the vast majority of those operating. And so we have to deal with a whole variety of regulations. We have all sorts of distributed nodes everywhere from like a Seattle to Japan. And so it's busy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that brings me to, I guess, another issue of you're on 5 different continents. You've got people everywhere. That's a lot of data coming into your sim sock. And, I'd like to kind of dive in and ask you about the, kind of the data versus clarity, right? I mean, how do you deal with that when you've got so much data coming in from 5 different continents and everything that you've got going on? Your 3 different operational areas. How are you managing that, so that you're just not swimming in more and more data and more alerts?
Sure. We're fortunate enough to interact with a great SIMless type of security operations center. We outsource this to an MSSP. A lot of organizations do that. We don't have the 6-person staff to rotate just on security operations, detection engineering, things of that nature. And so we get to leverage what other people use. We get to pre-bake certain alerts and know that this alert is higher fidelity because it's coming from a source system that says that's a problem. Matt, to your early point of like user behavioral analysis, that's very difficult to do, has traditionally been very difficult to do, still is very difficult to do, and gets more complicated and easier all at the same time with AI.
Yeah.
We put together people and technology, and just like we do at TriNetX, taking technology, taking intelligence, taking artificial intelligence, human intelligence, putting it together. We do the same thing in our security team. Really try and pull the 2 factors together to really understand both the technology and what the humans are bringing together to be able to understand what an issue is. Anything that's getting bubbled up to my team from our MSSP gets 2 or 3 looks at it. If we get paged, we should know what's going on. Now, fortunately, we're a smaller company, somewhere about 300 and across the globe. And so what we get to do is we get to know our customer internally very easily. So taking a page out of like financial services of know your customer to know what's going on, what might be reasonable or unreasonable. We make sure that our security team as a whole is out there partnering with the organization to know what seems legitimate. And so when we get an alert, we can very easily determine, is this legitimate or is this not legitimate, or what's the potential impact to the business very quickly.
Yeah. I think that's really the only way to do it, right? I mean, if you're not so big that you've got your own SOC, kind of in-house, that leveraging an MSSP is just, it's smart money, right? It becomes cost prohibitive to have 6 people on staff just to be there and manage the 24/7 operations, right? And I think one of the things that I find most exciting is this kind of abnormal behavior and where AI really kind of, I think, on the security side fits in. And we're seeing really cool stuff, like even on the email side. Here's where I think it gets fun, because users are so bad, and I'm going to insult everybody here who's not in tech. And you know what? They deserve it, and they know it, because they're really good at whatever job they're doing, but they're not so good at the tech side. which is fine, right? That's their job. If it, Jane in accounting is great at accounting. She's not
Yep.
supposed to also be great at cybersecurity or anything tech related. So why do we keep insisting that Jane go through all this training? Let's just take email alone. If Jane, how many times do we send Jane an email trying to
Mhm.
trick her into clicking on this just so we can say, boop, boop, that was not good, Jane. You know you're not supposed to click on these, right? Are we not finally at that point, and I think we are, where the onus and the responsibility is on security to
Mhm.
keep Jane safe and not rely on Jane. We wouldn't expect Jane to be running the backups and handling that. Why are
Mhm.
we? I get it because she's the one who received it and we don't want her to click. But I think the ownership is on security, and I don't think we can reliably, I don't think we can rely on end users because they have proven themselves unreliable. And yet we keep trying to make them reliable by putting them through training. And I know this is a hot take and it's going to piss off a lot of people, but I
No.
don't think we should be training people how to spot bad email because we can't even train our traditional email gateways to do it. And we're giving them all the rules. And yet somehow Jane is supposed to be able to, not to beat up Jane because she's a great accountant, but that's the whole point, right? Isn't that where AI should come in? And you have tools like, dark trace email, like Abnormal, that gets
Mhm.
so good at seeing what's normal in email and what's
Mhm.
not. And so suddenly, those things like DocuSigns. Well,
Mhm.
traditional email gateways can't stop that because it's legitimately coming from DocuSign. So how are we supposed to say, nope, no more DocuSign? Well,
Mhm.
that would be bad for business, right? But be able to look at that and be like, well, that's clearly not a DocuSign for you, Jane. I'm going to get rid of that. Just don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. I think that's where we are, and I think that's where we're going. And I know that's a lot, and it's a hot take, but I'm curious. Feel free to yell at me if you
No, no, no.
disagree, because some people do.
Yeah. So I do have a dissenting opinion on that.
Yes.
But having said that, I think it's less about carrot and stick, whether or not you're training, because training as like a checkbox, a compliance activity, that's great for your cyber insurance. That's great for your audit. That's great to say to someone who maybe just wants to hear those, good things. Where the rubber really meets the road is a good user awareness community. So one of the things we do in our organization is we have a security center of excellence. We have a security ambassador program. The idea is to bring champions in from other areas of the organization. Now, to Sally in finance, we have finance people that we sit with at least once a month, talk through what are they running through, what can we help them with. Um, because everyone's that first line of defense, I still feel like some level of training or some level of awareness needs to be done on a continuous basis. That could be annual training, that could be monthly updates, and the like. The information needs to get out there because we're the ones reading it, and it's our responsibility, fiduciary or otherwise, to get to the end users with the information that they need to at least get a fighting chance at doing the right thing. At the same vein, our finance team ensures that because I have a corporate card, I'm spending responsibly. And they've empowered me to do that. And they've trained me how to do that, how to spot maybe if I notice a fraudulent charge on my credit card to bring that up into the right areas. And so I think it's more important to train people to understand how to spot things and say, something might not be right. Let me know versus just going ahead and putting all of the risk on the information security team. Small information security team, typically, larger organization has to get distributed in the same way other shared services have to rely on each other and rely on general user populations to make things happen.
See, and I love that you have a dissenting opinion and that you're pushing back. And I think that's great. And I love I don't think in today's day and age there is enough discussion. It's,
Yeah,
all too often it's either you agree with me or screw you, you're the enemy. It's like, come on, how can we not discuss things? And I think that's where the best information comes from, and the
yeah,
best decisions come from, conflict of like, oh, okay, well, I hadn't thought of it that way. Let me think of, and I think you're right. To some degree, it's kind of like like in the military, everybody gets some basic training and can use
yes.
a rifle. Absolutely, right? But then at the end of the day, you don't put you're not putting your doctors on the front line and saying, okay, now, hold this line. That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense, right?
I'm not asking Sally in finance to go stand a post.
That's right. Exactly. And I think what's really exciting is I do think that we're on the verge, and we're seeing it now. It's kind of like the self-driving cars. I don't know. Have you been in like a Tesla or anything lately? Like very recently, and now they're at like 8 billion. Yeah, it's like 8 billion hours driven on full self-driving, right? So they're collecting
Mm-hmm.
all this data and it's
Yeah.
all been, right, using AI. And it's gotten so good. Like I've been driving a Tesla for, I don't know, 10 years now, and full self-drive with their autopilot used to be like a drunk toddler. It was not safe. It was not cool. It was
Yeah.
gonna get you in trouble. And then it's progressed. So it went from drunk toddler to toddler who's, manages their drinking,
Mhm.
to all the way to a teenager who's getting their license, to they graduated and they've got their license. And now what's really fascinating is we were just coming back from New York a few weeks ago, and we were driving on in the left lane. We're on full self-driving. The median's right here, and this car beside us swerves over in our lane so fast. I had no time to react. There was no way.
Mhm.
The car reacted perfectly, like in sync with the other car, slowed
Mhm.
down just enough, avoided the accident, didn't overcorrect, didn't slam on the brakes, so the people behind us didn't. There was a completely avoided the accident. That all happened faster than I could have reacted. And I was like, oh, that's it. I'm done. Like, there's just no way. I'm an
Yep.
attentive, alert, still, I still have good reflexes. And that's when I knew, okay, you could kind of see the progression. And now it's like, okay, we're going to be out of the equation soon. Like now I've taken myself out. I don't drive anymore. It's all full self-driving. Now, applying that to email and all the other, I think email in particular, we're in that, teenage driver, scenario right now where AI has gotten so good at spotting those email that now that team of one can handle an enterprise level, thousands and thousands of employees because they're not doing anything. The AI is taking care of it. It's all managed well and it does a great job. And it's that 95% solution. Is it perfect? No. But I do think we'll get to that point in the not too distant future where people are like, you're crazy. Why would we even like, you're not going to drive? That makes no sense. Humans
Mm.
are not. Oh, they found with the 8 billion man hours that the Tesla is 8 times safer than the average driver and 6 times safer than the average Tesla driver. So now, and we're not fully there, it's 8 times safer than the average person. And of course, nobody thinks they're average. The average person thinks they're an amazing driver, but
Mhm.
even that, it's 8 times safer. And I think we're about there with email security. So I think that day is coming. And I'm curious, first of all, if you agree or disagree with that. And secondly, like what that would look like. That kind of how do you do that responsibly and transition to that, hey, you don't have to worry about email, or does it just kind of naturally take care of itself because you went from training, you've implemented AI in your email, and suddenly, it's no longer a threat, and so then you just kind of move your training into other things. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with this. I hadn't given it, a ton of thought prior. My focus in this kind of area was around force multiplier, right? I have a staff, they force multiply for me. I'm asking them to do the same with AI. And organizations should be asking the same for them. When it comes to email specifically, yes, I think that we're probably at a point where at least more can be offloaded to technology. Better signals, better visibility. Is it going to be perfect? No, but it's definitely getting better. Um, I would say email's an interesting one because there's still so much human that's happening to start it. It's not really a technology to technology like you would have with an API integration or something like
Right.
that. It's where humans and technology really kind of come to a cross section and or crossroad rather, and that's really interesting to think about just offloading everything. I think at the same time, AI doesn't understand a business a human would, and so making sure it's set up properly and understanding what's going on is going to be still we're going to have that human in the loop, but I think more can be brought over.
Yeah, I love the force multiplier. It's analogy because it really is. I think that is where AI really shines when used properly. It's a force multiplier, right? And so when it comes to email, just look at how bad it can be, even for a company of 300 employees. Email can be a busy
Oh yeah.
job, right? And then especially when suddenly there's this onslaught of from this of a particular campaign, or God forbid something gets passed and it's some 0-day exploit and now it's created other problems, right? So I think it's a huge force multiplier when it comes to that because managing a traditional email gateway can be time consuming to keep up with all the new changes. And then, oh, we're getting hit with more spam. Well, we'll just crank up the spam filter. We'll
Yeah.
apply some new rules. Oh, that was too much. We got to dial it back. And now you're playing this game with with the filters, trying to get it right and find a balance. And yet stuff still gets through. And it's like, what are we doing
Yeah.
this for? So I do think it's a really great example of a force multiplier that's going to work out really well. So I totally agree with you. I think
Yeah.
that's one that affects everybody, right? Because
Yeah.
it's the everybody uses email. You look at things like the MGM breach, and if you had AI involved in that, I mean, they spend more money than anybody. Well, not than anybody, but they have a lot of money and they spend a
Mhm.
lot of money on cybersecurity. And
Yeah.
yet you still see how the humans could beat the system by playing them. And now had they been using AI, they would have been like, hey, wait a sec. There's no way this brand new
Mhm.
admin is suddenly doing more than the people who've been here for
Yep.
years. Hold up. This is not normal day one admin stuff. I'm gonna
Yep.
stop them and call for an adult. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that stopped. And now you won't need as many people. That's a huge force multiplier when AI is just
Yeah.
monitoring all your identity, when it's monitoring your network, when it's monitoring your email and handling that. And then you only get the occasional blip of, hey, is this right?
Yeah.
I think that's where we're really you see it now. We're there with
Yeah.
some products, but it's going I get excited about where the future where it becomes that self-driving car where you're like, yeah, there's no way I'm touching the steering wheel. That's like it's gonna be better than me. And we're not
Yeah.
quite there yet, but it does alleviate a lot of the driving, the day-to-day driving in cyber and and on the IT side. So I think that's a lot of fun. And for me, that's where I think it gets really exciting. Um,
Yeah. And from our perspective, we are using a more traditional email gateway with AI enablements. And so we've kind of put some in between there. Moving to a full AI native, offering would be would probably have some level of benefit. And so that's definitely one that we've had discussions on this already. And I think that as they get even better and the false positives get reduced, the reliance on more traditional email gateways, because even your AI native ones are going to rely on a traditional gateway to handle the traditional things, your spam, your quarantine. So even when you introduce it, pick your favorite AI enabled, email security platform or AI native email security platform, you still need to have the underlying like basics of the malware protections, the spam protections that come out of everywhere before the AI is even touching it at this moment. So I definitely think that there's more maturing to do, but at the same time, I think that it should be adopted at this, for organizations. It'll definitely cut out certain pieces. It'll definitely help, and it can think at technology speed where we can't.
yeah, and that's the big one, right? I mean, when the balls are coming at you that fast,
Yeah.
it's too fast. We can't, how do you defend against a machine speed attack? I mean, it
Mhm.
was fine a few years ago when they would be in a network for months, you know, slowly finding their way through and discovering vulnerabilities and slowly, getting their foothold. But now it's minutes. And I'm
Sometimes
sorry,
sub minutes.
you're
Yeah.
right, exactly. And they do their thing, and that's too fast. That's too fast
Yeah.
to even wait for the SOC to say, "Oh, hey, we got this alert. What do you want to do?" I'm sorry, it's been 5 minutes. They came in and they've started, and now it's okay. It's a real problem, right? So yeah, the speed has picked up, and I think you just have to you can't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? And I
Yeah.
think we are now in the AI gunfight, and you have to be using it. Anyway, we could go on and on about that, but I'm actually really curious, like what drew you to TriNetX?
Sure. So TriNetX has been around for I think about 13 years now, and I joined about 11, just over that. I came from higher ed, and I joined for a couple reasons. One, it was a great opportunity to join a high growth company at a very early time, but then separately, their path and promise to working for human health, better human health, has always been something that's been core to me. I unfortunately I lost my parents when I was younger, and so it's something that if I can impact someone's life through this, through the work I'm doing, I'm not a frontline, healthcare worker, but if the work we do can ultimately help, save a baby, save a mother's life, something of that nature, every day is worth it. Then at that point, every late night, every 5 a.m. phone call is worth it.
Yeah, it's funny. So my wife is an anesthesiologist who then transitioned out of practicing medicine to pharma. And
Mm.
it's funny because on the medical side, it's like, oh, pharma, they're the bad guys. Instead of it, and now it's, oh, insurance, they're the bad guys. But it's interesting because medicine doesn't exist without pharmaceuticals, right? Like, where are we? We're in the dark ages, right? If we don't have the medicines to actually treat people, we're in the dark ages. And it's really interesting because when they have their all hands meetings, like their quarterly and annual stuff,
Mhm.
the stories that they tell, right, that the leadership is telling, of the things that they've done, they're tear jerkers. I mean, they're changing lives. So when you can, it's really easy to get stuck on the day to day. Oh, like we don't, we're just in IT. But I love when people can really tie in what they're doing to a cause, like that, and it gives so much purpose and value to your work. Like you said, the late nights, they have meaning. Like if
Exactly.
you're helping to save lives. And I think that comes down to a leadership thing because even in like a factory where you're making, you might be making rubber gloves.
Mhm.
Okay, well, those rubber gloves save lives. It's easy to be like, ugh, factory work is so mundane. It would also be way better to be getting people really excited by the fact that they're literally saving people's lives, right?
Yeah,
So
we fortunately deal with a lot of journal publications, so it's really cool to see the information and intelligence that we're bringing about, both for our data providers, our health organizations, as well as for pharma, big pharma. We work with a large portion of them, and it's really cool to be able to see some of that stuff come together in a variety of ways. Whether that's a bid for a clinical trial somewhere, or for finding like the next. Way to diagnose through technology, through EHR records to diagnose some sort of cancer or something of that nature. It's really impactful, really interesting to see, and I always love when the news feed lights up, on our direct messaging platform.
yeah, that's super cool. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's been a blast, and I think we could talk AI and cyber all day. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about TriNetX?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. TriNetX is as well, obviously, TriNetX.com for us. And we hope to see you there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt, and until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.